Hey everyone, welcome to the I Am Eve vlog. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm assuming that the reason why you're here right now is because you've already signed up for the email alerts for every time I post something new to the blog. And if you haven't, why don't you go right over to I Am Eve, that blog right now and sign up. Also, you can follow me on Instagram at I Am Eve blog. So today I have something super special for you guys. I got together with 3 of my good girlfriends to have a conversation about the role of church and forming our ideas about our sexuality. This conversation is something that's very near and dear to my heart, something I feel passionate about as a wife, as a woman, as a Christian. I just think it's a really important conversation to have, okay? So, stay tuned. Joining me today, I have Arnalisa Lavender, Andrea Thomas, and DM Watson. Everybody has got stuff going on, so you want to follow them too. I'm dropping their social media handles as well. So as you're heading over to I Am Eve blog, you're going to look for these social media handles as well, because they're a good time, honey. You need to see what's going on in their lives, okay? Anyways, thanks for joining me. I hope you guys find the conversation to be relevant. I want you guys to comment, to like, to share. I want to hear what you have to say about this, what you think about this, what your experience was like. I want it to be a big old girl chat, okay? Thank you guys so much. Thanks for tuning in.
Here's one thing that we all have in common. The 4 of us are wives, and the 4 of us are in church. We identify as Christian and have been raised in church. So I think this conversation is super important to have because just in my own experience, my own journey kind of through my sexuality, the church was definitely super influential in terms of forming my ideas, forming my thoughts about what's okay, what's not okay. And I think it's something that doesn't really get talked about. So I thought it would be cool to talk about, hopefully helpful to some wives out there, people aspiring to be wives, whoever's watching. Okay, so I have a couple questions that I'm going to ask the ladies, and we're just going to kick it around, bounce ideas around, and see what we're going to do. First question is, what were the messages you received about sex from church? And second part of that question is, how were they similar or how were they different from messages you heard towards men or boys as we were coming up?
Well, I know for me, the message in church was don't do it. That was the clear-cut message. I remember we were always taught not to have sex, not to let anybody touch us, not to go too far. Although a lot of what has been learned, sneaky learning patterns, I think some people find that they learned it in the church. I wasn't one of those kids, but I know there was some kids that was in the basement doing some things that they weren't supposed to be doing in church. But I mean, yeah, that corner.
If you're
somewhere.
watching, even now, go check your church. If you're watching from a rehearsal, and be ready to find
your kids. Find your kids. Don't bring your kids back. But we always were taught not to do it, and I just remember like having conversations with boys, and I was like, no more sheets, and we not gonna have no soul ties, and I wait till I'm married. And I just remember it was such a boldness that they gave me at such a young age, not to explain really what sex was, but to say just don't do it. So the idea of what sex really was, that was taught to me by my peers, by TV, by school, by everything else but church, and that has become very, very dangerous. And I think that is dangerous for everybody, especially if you're talking about the most influential thing is your religion, and that's the one area that your religion does not talk about or touch, but just to say don't do it. And so I asked my husband the same question, like, what were you taught? Like, what did they say to you? And he said, well, they said don't do it, but the expectation really wasn't as high or as great for me not to do it. And so the influence of like the older males, like some of the older, not grown males, but some of the older males was, are you having sex? Are you doing it? Blah, blah, blah. We didn't have those as females. For men, they have more pressure to have sex, even in the church.
Right.
But for a young girl, it was just clear cut, don't do it. And at the point when they told me that, I probably didn't even know what sex was.
And that's the thing, we didn't learn exactly what it was. We just learned that it was something that you don't do until you're married. There was no explanation. Like you said, it was just a don't do it. We didn't learn about soul ties all the time. We didn't learn about, how it could affect the marriage later on. We didn't learn about how it's beautiful and how it could be fun and how it could be all of these things. We just learned that it's a no, don't do it. And I think a lot of the times, I think because we weren't educated on why it was a no, it was just a no, made us sometimes curious. Like, well, why not? Why can't I do it? What's so bad about it? What's so wrong about it? So I think for a lot of young Christians and people that grew up in the church, that was where I feel like a falling point, or where the church when we were younger, kind of failed us in explaining why not, versus just saying the why.
Yeah.
I would say for me, I didn't really learn anything about the actual act of sex. Like, I just learned, like Andrea said, just don't do it. And to me, it was more like, there were certain things that were always mentioned in sermons, which would be homosexuality and fornication. And those were the things that were like straight to the fire for you. You know what I mean? Like nobody talked about greed or gluttony. Like, fornication and homosexuality will send you straight to the fire. And to me, it was like, number one, I don't want to go there. And then number two, it was like, I grew up with a very classy mother. And she had a lot of self-control growing up, and I wanted to be like that. I wanted to be looked at like that. I didn't want to be looked at as a hoe, you know what I mean? And I knew that men didn't have that same issue. Like, if they were out doing things, they weren't looked at as a hoe, you know what I mean? And so I feel like that was the main difference, especially in the church, because like men were congratulated, especially men who are in roles of leadership in the church were kind of congratulated, like when there were multiple females who, like wanted them and things like that. And it was kind of like more so of a joke. But then when it came to the women and what we were doing or what we were not doing, it was like, just straight same face.
Like in the Bible, there was a double standard in the Bible as well. So I feel like it just stems from the beginning. Like there's this double standard. So for men, it was okay for them to have multiple wives and multiple women. But for women, it was death. Like to commit adultery and to go outside of it, to sleep with her, to entertain or look at him. It was like, no, like drag her out, like the woman part. You know what I mean? So it's like different things. So this whole idea of this double standard that you mentioned, I feel like it reminded me of that as you were speaking about it. And it's still going on, at least when we were younger in the church. This whole double standard of women are to save themselves and to submit to a man, whereas men had a little bit more freedom to do other things.
And I don't know if you guys have the same thing, but like as a preacher's kid, and I think sometimes church girls had the same thing, but it was almost like, okay, you're a church girl, you're a preacher's kid, then that means you must be doing something. We automatically assume that because you weren't allowed, you were sneaking around doing it. And that wasn't always the case. There were some that were, but that wasn't always the case. And it was like it was almost a testing point to figure out, will you be willing to do it? Or, how far can I get with you because of the fact that you're in church?
In high school, I think, and we had like our little Jesus club group, whatever. Come on, club. And we had a guest speaker come to speak about purity. Literally, she yelled at us and was like, "It hurts, and you're gonna bleed."
Oh, Lord.
And so we were sitting there like, ooh, why do people do this? But then, the older you get, you're like, it must don't hurt that bad. Everybody's doing it. Right. And so I remember that, and then the other thing that sticks out to me is that I feel like a lot of my value as a girl was wrapped up in my purity. So it was like, okay, you're so special, you're so da da da, you know, whatever, because you're purity. And, you know, keep yourself pure because you want to be, you know, special, or you want to be like set apart, or like, and I really remember like, I remember I said to my mom one time, I said, you know, I just want to keep myself because whoever my husband is, I already love him so much that I just want to keep myself.
That is so sweet.
That was so
Girl, and dumb.
And
And dumb. Girl, every bit of 15. Right. I was 9.
Right. That was so sweet.
Girl, and listen, my husband was clear across these United States of America at the time. I mean, so but I knew that, like, saying that, I'm kind of just a deep person anyway, but I knew that, like, and then my mom was like, guess what Jeree said? And she was like, yeah, she was so proud. And so I felt like, this is like, I'm a virgin.
Right.
So get out my face.
Right.
And one thing that I think was really significant that was missing, though, was, yes, definitely the why, but this might sound like a little bit dumb, or I don't know, was like the how to say no to. Like, somewhere along the line, I didn't really develop like skills to be like, no, we're not doing it.
Right.
So then, like, at times I would find myself in situations, and it was the grace of God that, you know, like, because you get to a point and you're with a guy that don't care nothing about the little special purity, nothing about serving the Lord, none of that. And they're like, no, this is what this was the road. You came on this trip.
Right.
This is our destination.
Right.
And I thank God for God's grace, because, I mean, I've been in a situation like that more than once. And just thank God that they were like, okay, so this ain't gonna happen. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So maybe
Take me
But then
home.
it affects how you're looked at, though.
Yeah.
And that's something I didn't realize until I got older, but that's something that a lot of women deal with. It's like, we want to be affectionate, we want to be loved, we want to be touched. Even at like, you know, teenage age, we want somebody to show affection to us and show us that we're different. And then, I mean, they start doing that, and y'all alone, and you don't really, well, at least for me, I was so naive. I didn't realize, like, there is a point of no return.
Yeah,
right.
Like,
Yeah.
and if you decide at a certain point to not keep going, like, that definitely weighs on your reputation and your name. And,
absolutely.
you know, nobody wants to be looked at as a girl that plays, like, is playing around, like, it's childish, like that childish little virgin. Like, you know, nobody wants to be looked at that way. So that has a big part to do of what we need to be taught, what we should have been taught.
Yeah.
Like you said, the how to abstain. Because the fact of the matter is, if you're not telling us what happens on the way to sex and during sex, then we don't know how to identify what's happening when we're kissing and touching somebody.
Girl,
You know
until
what I mean?
somebody whips it out, and you're
Picking
like,
up your
oh
panties
God.
off the floor.
Right. Like, this what what happened here?
Was it supposed to feel like that?
Right.
Yeah, and I feel like you just shouldn't have those questions.
Yeah.
Especially when people make it such a big deal. Like, when people just make it such a point for you to know that a huge part of your Christianity is, you know, what you do behind closed doors, you know?
Right.
And if it's such a big deal, like, teach me it all. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I don't even know how a parent or a Sunday school teacher or a pastor can teach you things that graphic. I don't know what that looks like, because it's never happened to me, but it is definitely important to know.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like everything, like I said before, everything I was taught by my peers. And I can remember things happening like in middle school and they're talking about a girl who did something. I'm like, what's that?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, but why don't I know what this is?
Right.
So my education about sex, what happens before sex, you know, first base, second base, third base, it's
Right.
like it's been formed around the world and the world's thoughts of what sex is and how you do it and what's
Right.
being done. But I
Right.
do remember Pastor Vernon doing a sermon talking about how single women should not ever pray against like their sexual desire. And I remember having that prayer before I got married, like, Lord, please take this away because I want to do it with him and him.
What was he saying?
He was saying
sir.
that you're not supposed to pray away your sexual desire because you're gonna need those sexual desire when you get married.
And he was
So
saying don't feel bad,
don't
too,
feel
like,
bad
for being
because-
sexual, because that's how
yeah.
God
Oh,
made us.
gotcha.
Like,
Yeah.
he made you sexual.
Yeah.
It's just on hold for a moment.
Right.
But we don't even know what that means to be sexual.
Right.
Right.
That is true.
Right.
I know. I'm like so serious. Like it was God's grace that I've never been raped in my life. Because a time or two, it's like the D is out.
Right.
And I'm sitting there like,
Yeah, right.
With that.
Right. Yeah.
What
and
is
then
that?
after a couple you like,
Right. No, don't even.
listen, you
I
wasted
like that
time.
Sir,
Yeah, right.
sir, young man.